Marco Di Cave from Polygonal. Before I continue, I want to ask everybody: is everybody okay with saving the video and everything we are talking about? If not, just say no in the chat. Okay, I don't see anything, then I continue. Then the idea is to talk about smart, digital, inclusive tourism. I was thinking about our experience in inclusive tourism, or actually it was accessible tourism. 14 years ago, we started with accessible materials and accessible route for the sister route. There are three monasteries here in our region of Catalonia, and we were preparing with Cortensa Catalonia materials, accessible materials, and also accessible route. But definitely for us, accessible route meant taking into account people with physical or sensory or visual or audio disabilities. Right now, inclusive has much broader sense, social sense. We are talking about being comfortable experience for different ages, for different gender, for minority groups, for everybody who would like to enjoy the tourism. And that is why we are here. Today we will start with a short introduction to the project, which is called Smart Digital Inclusive Tourism, and then we will continue with three presentations. One of them will be about Tour for All, that will be made by Stelena Angelova. Then we will talk about audio, visual accessibility, and Gabriel will tell us about his experience in it. And then Marco Di Cave from Polygonal Core, Italy, will talk about their experience with, let's say, intergenerational experience with seniors and younger generation. Just a very short introduction to our project, which is called SMART. And Ellen, our project manager from Dom Spain, will tell you just some words about it. Ellen.
Thank you, Elena. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. First of all, welcome to our webinar. This webinar, as Olena said, takes place within the framework of SMART 2 project on digital and inclusive tourism. First of all, the objective of our project is the importance of building a tourism sector that is both inclusive and sustainable. We firmly believe that digital tools can be a key driver to achieving these goals. Let me briefly tell you about the specific objectives. The idea is to support tourism professionals in designing accessible and inclusive destinations, ensuring equal access to all the travelers. It's to strengthen the digital skills and local and regional tourism stakeholders. It is to also promote the environmentally friendly tourism practices and to provide practical training and resources for tourism sector. How are we doing this? So first of all, we have an inclusive toolkit. You will find this in the Smart Tourism 2 project website. This toolkit has 26 good practices that we have found from the tourism professionals that have innovative tools and practices around Europe. Shortly, we will have a community of stakeholders where you will be able to see some interviews that we have conducted to these different good practices examples. Then workshops and webinars. One of the webinars is this one, but we will also have some national ones and some workshops. So keep the Insta and the LinkedIn so you can see the different things that we will be doing. And finally, the guide for inclusive smart tourism. This also will be shortly on our website, and we will also tell it during, we'll also upload it on our social media so you can read it. Our three speakers today will be Selena, Gabriel, and Marco. We will present them after the presentation. I will give the floor to them. Just to keep in mind that if you have any questions, please add them through the chat and they will respond after their presentations. Thank you for joining us once again. please follow our Instagram, LinkedIn, and check the website. And yes, thank you for joining us. Okay, so now Selena will be our speaker. So Selena, please.
Okay, thank you. Let me share the screen. Okay. Just confirm, please, that you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Lena and Elan, for the introduction. Really interesting project that you have. So we are glad to participate in this webinar. Welcome also to all of our listeners. I have prepared a brief presentation. Since I'm the first one to speak, I wanted to introduce a little bit about the concept of accessible tourism and how we see it as a human right, but also a business opportunity. Let me start a little bit in representing where I come from. I work in Impulsa Igualdad. It's a social entity that promotes equal opportunities for people with disabilities. It has different departments in Impulsa Igualdad. We have personal assistance, we have European projects, communication, and we have the part for accessible tourism that is called Tour for All. And this is the department that I work in. There we work in collaboration with public administrations and institutions to improve accessibility and make information available to all users. We also have online platform that provides information for accessible tourism resources all over the world. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you a brief, we will go to the website and I will show you how it works. Before that, let's look a little bit about the concept of accessible tourism. We are talking about being autonomous so that you not need any assistance. It's not only about the elimination of barriers, physical, sensory, cognitive, but making the environment and the services to be available on equal terms for all people, and avoiding the creation of spaces exclusively for people with disabilities. This relates a little bit to the concept of social inclusion that you started the presentation with. And one very important thing is that accessible tourism has a dimension that reaches more people than only those who have a disability, because we also include elderly, families with children, or people of short stature. There are groups of people who may need at some point of their life, including ourselves, also accessible services. As my presentation mentioned in the beginning, access to tourism and leisure is a human right. It is recognized by the United Nations in their Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. You can check the Article 30. Why is accessible tourism important, and why is this market growing? Well, because global population is aging. We all know that it's due to the increase in life expectancy. All countries around the world are experiencing growth in both the size and the proportion of older people, and it's expected that by 2050, the global population of people over the age of 60 will have doubled. So also, the number of people over 80 will have tripled, especially in developed countries. So that's an important point to show us how important accessible tourism market is and why we should adapt our services as tourism providers. What we do at Impulsa Igualdad is that we have a social approach. We always talk about universal accessibility as a fundamental right, and we make sure that everyone can enjoy the tourism services. I have here one quote that I really like to mention, that is, accessibility is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. So that's a very good way to contrast those concepts, and they're both very essential, of course. A little bit more of data to wrap up. we have seen from the EU statistics that 1 out of every 4 people in the European Union has a disability. And according to the World Health Organization, on a global level, disability prevalence is higher in high-income countries, with the European region being the first one, and then followed by the Americas, with 20%, both of them more or less. The tourist is a key element in the accessible tourism value chain. What is the accessible tourism value chain? Well, it's all those steps that we have to pass through when we organize our trip, when we are on our vacation, but also when we go home. So that includes the planning and organization, so availability of the information, but also the transport to the destination and then back home, the services in the destination, the urban environment and its accessibility. Then once you go home, we often receive, let's say, satisfaction surveys. Well, it's also essential to try to keep an open question, let's say, for the accessibility criteria, just to receive feedback and be able to get better. This value chain is related to many obstacles that people with disabilities face when they travel. In basically all of the steps of the value chain, we have some problem that we can encounter. So it's important to address all of that. People with accessibility needs usually need extra amount of time to plan and book the trip because they do not find the information easily, or websites are not accessible for search. We face lack of adequately trained employees or irregular supply of accessible services. There are many challenges in the physical environment at the destination. And unfortunately, we still have some inconsistency between what is advertised as accessible and what you find once you go to the place. So contrasting these challenges, let's say, with what tourists expect and what they want to receive as a service, they want accessibility to be seen from a global point of view and to meet their requirements as a standard service at no extra cost. Unfortunately, we have seen that many times if you try to book, let's say, an accessible transfer, it costs more than the regular one. Then adapted rooms in hotels, they usually tend to be in the places with higher categories, so that means also higher cost. And all those things united make the trip of a person with accessibility needs more expensive, and they already have more expenses in their day-to-day life. So it's important to try to provide this as part of the standard service. And of course, what we aspire to create is an environment that allows people to be autonomous at all stages of the journey. How have we done that at Impulsa Igualdad and Tour for All? I would like to show you the case study of Tour for All Travel. That is now the third entity, let's say, that I introduced, because it is a travel agency that has been born from the social entity that is Impulsa Igualdad. And this travel agency aims to create personalized, barrier-free experiences so that everyone, with or without disability, can explore the world. It is the only Spanish travel agency that is member of the advisory board of the Spain for All project. The Spain for All project is a project from Tour Spain or Tour España, which is the government organization for the promotion of Spain as a tourist destination abroad. So their office in London created a project to make Spain a more accessible destination for the British market, and Tour for All Travel Agency is part of this project, of the advisory board. And actually, last week we organized a fam trip for all the British content creators, tour operators. They came to Sevilla in Spain, and they tried local experiences in an inclusive environment. These are the core pillars that we believe are important when you are working in this social sustainability and responsibility part. We would like to provide personal assistance for all the people who need it, and it's a service that you can actually add to your trip, a personal assistant that can accompany you from your house or directly at the destination for the hours or the time that you need during the day to help you with your daily routine. We believe in the equal opportunities. That's why Tour4All Travel offers trips for people with disabilities, but also people who do not need accessible services, making travel be not only for the privileged. And we try to always organize the services through the point of view of universal accessibility, not to leave behind anyone who may need a special service. And that has made us participate in different projects and also organize different trips for people with physical, cognitive, or sensory disability, or for groups of older people or families with children. I wanted to briefly present Tour4All Travel because now I will take you to our accessible tourism platform, because I want to make this presentation a little bit more practical and show you how actually you can use this as a tool if you want to organize your trip or for a friend or for a client and you need information on accessible tourism resources around the world. This is our platform. It's called tour4all.com. It's available in different languages. Right now I've set it to English, but it's very easy to navigate. I can take you quickly to the browser where you can filter by country, region, province, accessibility criteria. We have a lot of indicators, let's say, in order for you to filter whatever you need, whether you need sign language interpretation, magnetic induction loop, adapted rooms, or step-free access. And I will show you one example of a hotel here in Madrid. I'm based in Madrid now. It's a hotel that we collaborate a lot with, and we know that they have advanced in accessibility. And I just want to show you how your establishment can be in Tour4All and what it would look like. Here we have all the accessibility criteria. We have been to this place, we have checked it personally, and we have taken this information. The hotel is quite advanced in accessibility material because, as you can see, they even use those colorful codes. Maybe some of the next speakers will talk more about that, so I will be brief. Those are the Navilens codes that allow you, if you have a visual disability, to be able to find your way easier around the hotel. They have the ramp and the entrance, automatic door. They have adapted room, of course. They even have adapted room for people with visual disabilities. So that's like a bonus step they've decided to take, and that's not something that the law requires, but they have decided to do it. In each area of their profile, you can see how we have created some visual material with the photos so that the person who is going to visit can check what are the conditions and take the decision whether this works for their needs or not. We have collaborated a lot with them, and they actually ask for feedback when they have clients with accessibility needs, and they try to improve whatever is needed. Here we have the adapted room with lots of facilities. Also the bathroom has basically everything you need. So this is just an example of how would a hotel look like in Tour4All. So I invite you to check the platform and, of course, look around, maybe see if there's something in your country. Since we are mostly in Spain and in Portugal, but also we have included more countries. And whenever we have someone who has interest in collaborate, we try to include them in the platform. And I've tried to be brief and more or less keep it to 15 minutes. I hope I managed to do that. And thank you very much for your attention. You have my email here, so I'm also available there if you have any questions. And I will give the floor now to the next speakers. Thank you.
Stelena, I just want to thank you for this presentation. I remember the topic of physical accessibility also 15 years ago when we also checked different hotels and making our accessible hotel rooms. But from your point of view, now you are in Madrid. We are not talking only about accommodation. We are also talking about restaurants, but we are talking also about events. How events are accessible, do you think, in Spain?
Well, in Spain, I would say they have advanced a lot in terms of legislation. So we already have a lot of things that are fixed by law, and you have to, of course, take this into account. But then the event sectors, we can see very innovative examples, and especially in the tourism sector, let's say Fitur, they have they dedicate special attention to accessibility, and this year, for the second time in a row, in Fitur, we have a special section that's called Fitur for All. It's organized by Fitur and Impulsa Igualdad and ourselves. So we make a program for 1 or 2 days that we speak only on those topics, and of course, all the services, the establishment itself is accessible. I believe they even give a prize for the most accessible stand in Fitur. So you can see that they have made this mind shift and they are trying to improve. And I think it's a very good example being here in the capital of Madrid.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see here Superab, that is one of the associations that very active in our region, and they work with Asperger and syndrome and autism, and they have a lot of initiatives to make festa festivities accessible. My question is, if someone have, let's say, accessible or inclusive event or I don't know, a hotel, a restaurant, and they want to add them to your platform, what is the protocol? Should they contact you, or how to act?
Yes, it's different about each establishment, but yes, of course, they can contact us and we can see how we can organize depending on where they are located. Because usually you can also register by yourself and put some basic information, but the system does not allow you to put a lot of photos. So if you want to have like the full profile, this means we also have to visit. So I just encourage, if you need more information, you can contact us. Yes.
Okay, and also if we have a group who would like to come to Madrid, we can contact you, and then you organize this trip, right?
Of course, the part of Tour for All Travel as an agency works, as a travel agency. So of course we can organize everything.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stelena. If you have more questions, we will have more time at the end of our webinar. And let's go directly to Hong Kong, to Gabriel, to our audiovisual accessibility expert. Gabriel.
Yes, thank you very much, Elena. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And Alan will be moving, I guess, my slide, if that is okay with you. Thank you very much for that. So today I'll be talking about design for all in tourism communication. I'm a linguist. I'm here at a conference in Hong Kong talking about audiovisual accessibility, and it's a room, or it's a conference full of linguists. So then I'm really in the mindset of that. If you could go to the next slide. Next. I'll probably say next, Alan, if it's okay, and then I'll thank you at the end. Okay. So design for all in the tourism starts with communication. And before even the journey begins, the information, if it's not usable, then the journey is basically over before it begins. That's why design for all means planning like the the message so that everyone, regardless of ability, the age or the disabilities, the language, can understand, can also act on these, on tourism, basically. Inclusion starts again with the communication, and if we improve the quality of communication, we avoid also expensive sort of like pitfalls later. Next. We talk a lot about physical accessibility, and then what usually comes to mind is the ramp. So then the ramp is, of course, something that sort of like defeats physical barriers. But then when we are, again, if you're coming from my background of languages, the first actually barrier that the traveler faces is the inaccessible the website. So the website, the brochure, or if the booking engine, if it's not accessible, that's again where the journey ends before it begins. The UN World Tourism Organization that reminds us that the clear, accessible information is essential, and it's every stage of the journey, basically. So this communication, to make it inclusive, also earns trust and reduces cancellations that are genuine hospitality. I'll talk a little bit more about the sort of the pros of being accessible, not in terms of ethics, but in terms of money, which is something that unfortunately we all understand. Next. So why is Design for All important? Design for All is important because it creates an experience of the work, and it works for the broadest range of people without separate adaptation. Basically, it works for everyone. Or for most people. It focuses on perceptibility, simplicity, and flexibility, and ensures the content is used to different senses or technology. So it moves like beyond the compliance, and it goes from sort of like cost of making something accessible to the innovation of improving the user satisfaction and the value. Next. There are three sort of like themes or concepts, and then these are sort of like mantras that should be, chanted basically whenever we're just talking about accessibility. Communication is an access barrier in tourism. Multimodal design as a path to inclusion, how to make things accessible and inclusive in different ways, and inclusion as a design or a cultural practice. If you could move to the next slide, and then the one after that. Thank you. So inaccessible information means lost travel. This is estimation that over $58 billion are lost in, there are travelers with disability that control over 58 billions in annual travel to spend, but they often stay at home because they understand that, of course, from the website or from the very get-go, then the destination is not accessible. So then this is lost revenue, basically. This wrong or hidden information, this has cost on destination bookings, reviews, and loyalty as well. And then physical upgrade also mean little if people can actually plan or book with confidence. So this is something that I've been talking about also here, because some of us are, of course, on the other side of the world, and we are talking about tourism and what plans we have once we are in China. But then this is something that we do as privileged people because we are people without disabilities. It's also the case of, next slide, please, sorry. The case of inclusive communication, where 1.3 billion have disabilities. But the fact is that these people usually don't travel alone. So then this means that if you add the companion or the families, this goes on to double. So like 2.5 billion people, which is out of 8 billion people, is quite a lot, have either a disability or know someone very close, family member or partner, who has a disability, any kind of disability. Therefore, their combined potential is measured as 2.5 billion. Some of the ways to make things accessible and inclusive are, of course, through captions, plain language, and the clean navigation, which helps everyone. The visible accessibility also boosts the brand reputation, which is something that hotels, and restaurants, and venues, and even theaters should be aware of. Next. How to do that? Multimodally. So I'm using different ways to make things multimodal, and it's basically a way of having at least two modes, for example, text and audio, or video and transcript. And not just using one way, one mode to make things accessible or to convey information. This also fulfills the universal design goal of perceptible information and reduces the support request. Next. Other practical approaches to multimodal communication. They sort of provide meaningful alternative text for images and full transcript for audio-only content. Caption, I am subtitling myself, so then I can stress enough how much it's important to have subtitles on every single video or audiovisual material that you have. And then easy to read layouts and sign language clips or universal pictograms for clarity across languages. Again, I'm here in Hong Kong. The main language here is Chinese. Don't speak Chinese or understand Chinese. So then, of course, once you get directions, so having clear images, that's helpful. I'm going to give you some example with the next slide, if you could. Some of the examples, and the one, for example, in Milan, there's a Diocesan Museum supplies artwork descriptions in AAC. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. So it uses symbols or pictograms for those with speech or cognitive difficulties. And there are QR codes that miss each painting that lets visitors know or pick the format that suits their needs and devices. So then they can choose whatever they prefer or need or want. So this digital and physical integration also widens the engagement for people who are deaf or blind or neurodiverse. And the engagement is something that sort of like promotes, again, something that will be sustainable. So once people with disabilities will see that that venue or that place or that seat of the restaurant is accessible and inclusive, they will come back. And then come back meaning more money. I'm just stressing about this a lot. If you could go to the next slide, I'll show you an example, a physical example of the braille railing with a view. And that's basically sort of like a physical environment is embedded into, sorry, the accessible services are embedded into the physical environment. And this is a railing with a view in Naples, and it's got brailles in it. So then it brailles and it's sort of like done seamlessly within the landscape and the physical environment, which is the opposite of, if you're thinking about it, of hostile architecture, for example, which is the architecture that is designed to prevent people from doing things like, for example, making a park bench uncomfortable, so that would like something to prevent, for example, homeless people to sleep at night. It'll be opposite of that. If you can move to the next slide, I will talk about the inclusion as design as a cultural practice. So then you plan access from the very first brief, and then this is how you retrofit the cost more and reach fewer people. But if you're making things accessible by default, then this is something that's like embedded within the DNA or the ethos of, again, any cultural or touristic place. For example, again, the cities or the hotels or the restaurants. Can you go to the next slide? This goes through sort of like vertical and horizontal leadership, training, and attitude. The leadership, because of the ones who got the priorities, the budget, and the metrics for accessibility. If you consider accessibility as part of your budget, the same way you would do it with, I don't know, safety. You pay a lot of money, whichever organization you're working from or for, you pay a lot of money for having someone survey the safety of your company, and then you pay a surveyor for doing that, and then you're investing also in training. You should be doing that for accessibility and for inclusion as well. There's also staff that needs to be aware of disability, and then there's continuous feedback that goes from users to a producer. If you could go to the next slide, I will show you some examples of the ones we have in Italy. Italy.it follows an accessibility by default for ethos, and also the initiative like Turismabile and the Village for All. And just a reminder that Turin will host the World Summit on Accessible Tourism in 2025. That's in October, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the 3rd and the 5th. 3rd to 5th of October, something like that. That's something that perhaps you should be considering. If you can move to the next slide, and then the one after that. I'll be talking about the accessible tourism platforms. So, some of the platforms that are usable, like the ones that Wheels the World or Accessible Go, and there are some apps as well, which are called Wheel Map or NaviLens. And if you could go to the next one, I'll probably wrap up with some of the key ways that the takeaways that we're sort of like giving you today, which is this information isn't available, the destination isn't accessible. So we start by fixing the communication. A design for all mindset that benefits every visitor and strengthens their competitiveness, which is again something that should be promoted for someone who is always worried about money. And then inclusion as a cultural habit, which is a more consistent improvement that creates lasting value. If you go to the next slide, we'll just leave you with some next time or future further resources. If you were sort of like looking at your own organization, you could do your own audit of the communications, and then you see how much accessible and inclusive you are with communication. And there are some tools, including roadmaps and guidelines from WCAG, UNWTO, ANAT, etc. for Italy. And then you can always join networks, such as this one, or just attend webinars like this one. Gather user feedback and schedule regular updates instead of one-off fixes. And with that, I thank you for your time with the next slide and my email addresses if you want to contact me for any discussion you might have.
Gabriel, thank you. I understood that you are trying to enter in 10 minutes, 15 minutes that we talk.
That's right.
Yeah, but in general, your experience is really fantastic. I mean, what you do with subtitles and with Istituto dei Sordi. Last week, we had a group here from the Istituto dei Sordi, and it was our first experience with a person who had audio and visual impairments. And we preparing the materials for the sessions, for the training, and actually we organized also cookery sessions in our restaurant. We were worrying how to organize it in an effective way. And definitely it's important to have like an accompanying person who then make a lettering to the person who cannot see and who cannot hear. But in general, you as an expert in this, can you provide some, I don't know, practical advice, some practical suggestions for those who would like to make more inclusive environment for audio and visual impaired persons?
So for people with like visual and hearing disabilities, and that sort of like ranges, because apart from deaf people and hard of hearing, the blind and partially sighted, there are also people who are deaf blind and blind deaf. And then, as you were saying, they require sort of like different, they have different needs and they require sort of like special accommodations in a way. And it's a matter of seeing the world not with your eyes, but with your ears, and hearing the words with your eyes. So making the way that think about, like, for example, close your eyes or cover your ears and see if something is accessible or not. This is a way of measuring whether or not someone who doesn't have hearing, who doesn't have sight, can actually see or hear or understand what you're trying to say or what you want to communicate. And that's a way of leading to, as you were saying, someone who's also deafblind. So what are the differences in that? So then it's just a matter of looking into yourself and then someone doing like a checklist of things that are good, things that are better, that could be improved in a way.
Thank you, Gabriel. I see that we have different questions in the chat. I think that we will come back to them later. Let's listen to our one more experience from Marco Di Cave from Polygonal, and it will be about intergenerational experience. And then Stelena, Gabriel, Marco, if you want to answer the questions in the chat, you will be welcome. Marco, then the floor goes to you.
Yeah, All right. So my intervention wants to focus on a case study that our organization arranged by experience. It's a community organization. So the reflection was how to craft the information on tourism. Okay. Most of the time, if we reflect, tourism information is done by professionals. Basically, you have that monument, you have that thing, you have that kind of heritage site or whatever, and it's done by professionals. But what if the information is planned and participated by locals, so that tourism, especially in its mass forms, is it's seen as an invasive experience, right? You have people which come, people which consume, people which do. Of course, at a global level, it it's moving towards new forms of tourism. So my reflection is from this. We start from this photo. It's our part of our organization. We're quite many people that we deal with different things. We are called polygonal because of the polygonal walls, which are one of the let's say the heritage sites that you can see in this photo, which are almost 3,000 years, and we are connected to our identity, but we want to be also want to be international in a rural area, which is named Kori, so 60 kilometers from Rome. And what we do as an organization also to give some photos. I mean, all the photos I'm sharing are from things that we've been doing in the last years. So festivals on mental health, on electronic music in unknown areas, or Italian for foreigners, and many other social activities. So these are the three key words that I wanted to share with you. And that's what the case is about. So we start with this, like with the memories, how we live it really. And so the idea was, how can we tell in a different way the culinary traditions and the places? Because when you have a walk in a town, you normally have, okay, this was the monument X. There, the family was here, blah blah blah. And so the idea was, okay, let's crowd create this information. So we gathered people. So we spread out information that we wanted to map shops and especially bakeries in a certain area of our municipality that's currently facing a process of gentrification and slash moving out. So the idea was, okay, let's try to map things. Briefly said, so we relying on the memories of people. So we had like few walks and so on. These are the 70s, these are the 2020s, I mean, of this century. And that's what we see in this historical center, that basically things are moving out. And the reflection was, okay, what can we do? So that's that was the question. And how was different? How is today? And also as citizens, how can we act? But at the same time, how can we tell? Like, what can we take from this data? These are also photos and other things that we discovered. So, like, thanks to the engagement of the locals. And in these walks, we had also historical guides. So professionals of who normally work as information crafters, gatekeepers, we can call that, in archaeological walks, etc. So can we tell like the historic center in a different way, and what can we do? So we did, you see, these are like some gatherings so with seniors, because I mean, of course, the idea was who knows, I mean, who had this specific data. And so here on the left, you see like when we are discovering some shut doors. And these are photos that we recovered thanks to the contribution of people. So in this way, this potential information, which is about bakeries, shops, and of course the agro heritage, let's say the agro or the food heritage, which has to be then let's say shared towards those gatekeepers, which again can be guides or restaurants, if you think, because when you move to an area, when you visit, who will you meet first? A waiter, for sure. You will meet for sure a bartender. So these are, or a guide if you are more into, let's say, I mean, I'm speaking very generally, okay? Like in any tourism experience, who are you going to meet, okay? So this information were then passed on to, okay, those gatekeepers so that they can tell in a different way. But at the same time, we started also committees like neighborhood committees so that this tourism information, I mean potentially tourism, because here we're talking about kind of regenerative tourism, what can we do, what can we change, and what was and what is now, okay? So in this way, information itself becomes an accessible key for people, because that's why my intervention was a step before the tourism experience, okay? How we think of information. As an association, we run a cultural center in co-management with the municipality. So which is the historical archive and public library. So we started like a very scientific search. So which is, I mean, here I put just a scan of a license of a bakery, okay? So we were matching scientifically what was in the cadastry of our municipalities, between the 70s and up to the 2000. And what people remembered. Okay, so here you can see this screenshot also of Google Maps using my maps so that people, I mean, we made also digital workshops, which was even funnier. Okay, so it was a kind of complex and participatory way. With participation is always like, you never know what's going to happen. But the idea was, can we make tourism information different? Okay, can we produce it by people? Of course, then by collaborating with what we named gatekeepers. Okay, so this was the idea of this intervention, and that would be great even to set up a project on this and see how target groups would tell their areas and what they would like to tell to tourists. So in this way, there's a connection between visitors and locals, because how I and we see it, there's no barrier between those publics, because what I see accessible is not just for tourists, it's also for me as a person living an area, okay? And not just in places as the previous speakers have done, and it was super interesting, but also from the information itself, like how we self-reflect as communities on the places we live, basically. So the key is sharing, and after this, we had some workshops on wild herbs, because especially when in some workshops there were younger people, there was this discussion about why there were no herbal shops or something, because people just collected these herbs. So here there were one, there's an open session in here there were like screenshotted herbs, so then people had to recognize them, okay? And these are all like little things that can all together become like a real storytelling and tourism information for tourists, but also for locals. So the key is sharing. That's what for us accessibility I'd like to share. And from this we started actually a project, I mean, a project idea, I mean, from this voluntary work, and basically there was we did some workshops afterwards, and with youth trails, I mean, basically we want to reflect on this eco heritage that has been somehow lost by younger generation, especially when it comes to wild herbs, or how people were sustainable in the past, and that's what we did. I mean, and we are doing to make this information something that it's shaped by locals, and that's really it by me. And I wanted really just to reflect on these key points, and I thought this morning could become like a connecting moment. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, and also you say the key is sharing, and I think that was the key of our webinars, sharing. Thank you, Marco. By the way, when he was talking about this experience and about community involvement, there is also another project idea that we have, Agora, how to make the community be involved in the experiences, including tourism experiences we are creating. Thank you very much. I have just one question to three of you. This morning I was checking. Okay, usually in the morning they send to us emails from different public authorities about subventions they are going to issue. And today there was one subventions on accessibility. And actually, the budget they have, that is 80,000. And my question to you, what would you do? I mean, you are not a policymaker. Policymaker has already made this, let's say, funding document. You have 80,000 euros for your organization. And here we have public and private organizations. Then what would you do with 80,000 euros to make your place more accessible, more inclusive? I mean, that is click clap, the first thought you have. Stelena, I see you
Yes.
already. Yeah.
Yes, I can start. Well, it can be quite a complex project, I would say, because you can do a lot of things. I don't know if you meant that it could be for one destination or country-wise, but if it's for one destination, you can make a lot of things. We always like to establish like an action plan or a strategic plan so that you can put inside all those actions that you can do. But one of the most important things in that we always try to pay attention to is the training and sensibilization in accessibility and attention to client with accessibility needs. So you can do something, so a very major activity and involve private sector, public sector, local communities as well, and make some kind of event with to put yourself in the shoes of a person with disability, because this always opens your mind and makes you think a little bit further than just the ramp and the lift.
Okay, then you would invest in trainings of the professionals and in
Yes.
raising awareness campaigns and doing
Yes.
something with associations. Okay, thank you. Well, Gabriel, what would you do with 80,000 for audio-visual accessibility?
I think I actually use it for dissemination. I come from and live in Sicily, which is a country that lives off tourism, basically, but then dissemination and then sharing what we have and what could be done and what it could be is something I actually would invest on. And with that 80,000, I don't know if it's a real question, like you want to give us 80,000 euros. In that case, Elena,
It is
we
not
will
a real
take it.
question. That is
We will
our
take it. Thank
regional
you very much.
authority, and today they issued.
Joking.
But we have
I think I
something
would
to
invest
share.
it. I would invest it for dissemination. Like they need to know. We need to know more about this, so then multiply events in Sicily and specifically in my region.
Okay, dissemination.
What would you?
Marco, what about you? Cory, or in general, your region?
Well, I mean, for sure. I mean, communication would be an asset, but maybe I would continue the work in like creating something like a maps which are from locals. So at least to have resources in those and to have higher quality materials. That's for sure.
Okay, and then if we summarize everything we are talking about, training or at least support to professionals dealing with local tourists or international, dissemination, raising awareness, and then perhaps investing also in local communities. What I suggest, and this is a real suggestion, to think about the call that are coming this year and prepare a good proposal, because I think that you have experience and you have expertise. And I know that we have also those who can write a proposal. And this is a suggestion to three of you and also to those who are here in this session. Let's think about a quality proposal about inclusive tourism. Let's meet, let's talk about it, and let's write it. And I think it would be the best, let's say, fruit of our webinar today. Thank you very much, Ellen. I don't know if you have any other questions from the group. I saw that Gabrielle at the same time was answering the questions in the chat. Do we have more questions, Ellen?
I think we've only got comments. Yeah, the rest have been all answered. So thank you, Gabrielle, for your quickness.
Again, thank you very much. We are perfect. You see, we are a perfect team. We were talking about 1 hour. We start at 11:01 and now it is 12:02. I mean, we are experienced. We have expertise in different topics connected with accessible and inclusive tourism, and we are punctual. That is what we need for a perfect team. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Marcus, Elena, Gabrielle, for one more moment. Can you stay? I just not to continue, to summarize our